The Boy and Othniel by Andy Rutrough. The boy watched Othie push a quarter-inch thick oak tile into the jigsaw blade. The steel howled a tear through the basement as it bit the wood. The boy loved this sound, as well as the hot sawdust smell that filled the air. It reminded him of life. Othie pulled the oak from the saw, turned it, set it in the saw again. The boy sensed the feel of Othie's hands against the smooth grain and the jagged edges of the wood, still hot from friction with the blade. Othie held the oak tile over a trash can and sanded it with careful strokes. He did not see the boy. He never saw him. This did not bother the boy. After all, he was a ghost. "Othie," Viv called from the kitchen upstairs. "Othie, dinner's ready." Othie glanced up from his work. His face softened, as if listening to music. He rubbed the sandpaper across the edges of his oak tile 5 more times, ran his fingers across a long, narrow, nearly chest-high table he was making, and made his way toward the stairs. The boy swirled around the jigsaw, sensing warmth and sharpness in the blade's teeth. He rose up close to the light above the machine that Othie had just turned off. The bulb was clear glass, big as an apple. He watched the tungsten filament fade over several seconds from bright orange into crimson. What did it remind him of? The boy slipped back into his place beneath the basement stairs. Othie was climbing them now. His deliberate steps creaked on the boards. Occasionally a plank resounded with a crack as it scraped against a nail. The boy loved this. Othie might return that evening to work on his table. Maybe not. The boy did not mind. He loved the cool dark under the stairs, far away from the August heat above. He peered out at the table. On the front, Othie had penciled in a pattern for the wood tiles, and on the back he had engraved the year, A.D. 1945. What kind of table is it? The boy wondered, as he drifted off to sleep. He dreamed he was running in a backyard, a length of ribbon in his hand. Wind blew the crimson strand this way and that, twisting and turning it. He laughed. The wind tugged at the ribbon in his grip. A kindly woman with gray hair stood at the edge of the yard, her arms outstretched. She laughed and called to him. He laughed, but he did not come. The basement light winked on. Mid-morning sun shone through the basement windows high up at the top of the walls. Viv was clomping down the stairs, a laundry basket in her hands. She did this twice a week. The boy watched her set the clothes in the electric washer, pour soap in, turn it on. Later, she would carry the basket of wet clothes out to hang them in the sun, and the boy would peer up at her through half-buried window panes. "Oh," she moaned, standing there by the washer. The sound flowed from her arms and chest and belly and struck the boy hard in the lungs. A sob almost escaped him. In her hand, Viv held a little steel fire truck. She had pulled it from a pocket in Othie's pants. The boy watched her slip it into her apron and then show it to Othie that evening. "I found this today in one of your pants pockets." Othie glanced at it. "Oh, right. That was in the stack of chestnut boards by the furnace. He must have left it there one day and forgot it." Viv stood staring at the little fire truck. "You want to keep it?" he asked. Viv flinched. "Oh, Othie, that would be silly. What use would we have for it?" Othie said nothing for a moment. Then, "Go ahead and keep it if you want." The boy watched Viv hold the toy fire truck. Her hand twitched down toward the trash can, then pulled back and slipped the truck into her apron pocket. She clomped back up the stairs. The boy watched after her. Somehow, he really wanted to see that fire truck. He wanted to look at it up close. He followed her up the stairs and almost chased her through the door into the kitchen. Almost. But on the other side of that door Sunlight blazed. The August heat had seeped into the whole house and gripped the air like a vice. Hot, he thought, too hot. He could not breathe. He swept back down the stairs and curled up beneath them. Cool, dark. That was what he wanted. But in his mind there was no cool. Instead, fever blazed in his forehead and his chest. Sweat poured like rivers from his face. His sheets were drenched. "Mama! Mama!" he gasped. Mama kept putting wet cloths on his forehead, but they did no good. Daddy was pleading with the doctor outside his door. "Penicillin," he kept saying. "Penicillin." But the doctor said he couldn't get any yet. War effort. Not yet. In the corner of his vision, the boy saw a woman with gray hair and a kind smile. He turned away and whispered, "Mama!" But the air had left his lungs. Now the boy curled tight beneath his stares. The cool dark surrounded him. After a while, the fire in his lungs faded, and he slept. Othie was screwing together a tall oak cabinet when the boy awoke again. He peered out. An elaborate crosswork of wood tiles swept across the table. "Is it finished?" he thought. But Othie was testing how the cabinet would attach to the back of the table. What kind of table is it? The boy wondered again. The next day, Othie sanded the last of the tiles, a maple triangle, and glanced upstairs. Viv had come to the basement door. "The glue is ready," she called. "Okay, bring it down." Viv clonked down the stairs. The boy peeked around from underneath. She carried a saucepan, hot with the smell of gasoline and sharp tar. The boy pulled away. "Here it is," she said. "Good." Othie took a paintbrush and a maple tile from the workbench, brushed the tile with glue, and set it carefully in the high back cabinet of the table. The boy watched Othie's set jaw and careful fingers as they brushed another tile, oak this time, and set it in. As always, the boy saw precision in the patterned tiles, careful lines and exact forms. Othie set a third tile. Chestnut. The boy glanced sideways. Had he seen something in the corner of his vision? No, not really. Just a half voice, like a dream. A man at the lumber yard towered like a giant among great stacks of boards. "That chestnut blight has got them all," he said. "Before long, every chestnut tree in the country will be dead." The boy smelled the well-cut wood, the sour taste of oak and the tang of pine. A great presence, Daddy, stood beside him, one hand gently holding his. "But we've got this bit from an old barn," the lumberman said. "I'll take it," Daddy said. A voice cut through the boy's thoughts. "I'd better go finish supper," Viv said. The boy shook his head. The smell of heated glue hit his nose again. "Right," Othie said as Viv clomped back up. The boy watched Othie scratch out patterns on the tall oak cabinet with a stubby pencil. Othie set a few tiles in without glue, just to estimate their place. His jaw held solid, and his eyes drilled down on his work. Othie pulled away from the table, stretched his back, looked around. The boy's mouth dropped open. Now he saw that the cabinet behind the table had no doors, no shelves. It only had an alcove in the middle. "What's that for?" the boy wondered. Viv called from the kitchen. "Dinner's ready." Othie creaked up the stairs and turned the lights off at the top. But the boy did not curl up beneath the stairwell. Instead, he watched the high-backed table as if it was some creature that might pounce on him. He moved around it. The intricate tilework drew his eyes to the alcove in the middle. "What's it for?" the boy wondered again. He traced one finger along the top of the table and around the alcove, but he did not reach in. He knew something went there, something special. He could not remember what. He slipped beneath his staircase. He stared at the table. What was it for? He frowned at it. "What are you for?" he asked. "I am for you." a voice answered. The boy froze. The sound did not come from the table. It had come from the side, from the corner of his eye. For a moment he thought about running, like he had run before, laughing and running, panicking and running. How many times? But the strange table calmed him. He turned. The woman with gray hair from his dreams stood there. "I am here for you." Her voice sounded kind and musical, like a flute he had heard a woman playing one evening as he stood outside her window. "What's your name?" he asked. "What's yours?" she asked. The boy stopped. He glanced at the altar. Its empty alcove seemed to stare at him, as if asking the same question. Panic rose in his chest. "I don't know. I don't remember." He began to cry. "Would you like me to tell you your name?" the woman asked. The boy stopped crying. He felt a hum in the air, like just before a thunderstorm. Something very big was hanging very close. "No," he blurted. "No, I don't want you to tell me my name. I want to stay here. I want to keep being a ghost in my nice, cool basement." He flitted underneath his stairs and curled up, hoping for the darkness to close around him. But it did not close around him, not completely. He just stayed there, peering outward. The woman with the gray hair disappeared into the shadows, but the altar stood still, solid, with its beautiful wooden tiles and its empty alcove. It did not move. The next day, Othie put in many tiles, and the next day even more, until at last the whole glorious table stood in the middle of the basement. Othie had a man come down to see it. "Othie, this is beautiful," the man said. "I think it will make a wonderful altar." "Thank you, Pastor Longworth." "And the cross goes here." Pastor Longworth pointed at the alcove. "Yes." Pastor Longworth peered inside. "Is this chestnut?" "Yes, it came from a piece of old barnwood." "Amazing. You have just 4 more tiles to go." "That's right," Othie said. Then, "It's not like the altars you can get from Germany." "Can't get anything from Germany nowadays, not with the war just over and everything bombed to rubble," Pastor Longworth said. "Besides, this is good. It's from here, from you." Othie stood there with a half-smile on his face. That night, Othie set 3 of the last 4 chestnut tiles in the alcove. Light was fading outside, and the boy expected Viv to call him upstairs any minute. But instead, she came down. "Hello, is it time for dinner?" Othie asked. "Not quite." She stood there, her hands in her apron pocket. "What have you got?" She drew out the little steel fire engine. "I just want to put it on the altar, just for a minute." The boy reached toward the fire truck. "I used to play with that," he thought. He remembered the feel of the truck in his hand, cool and hard. Its corners and ridges had pressed into his skin. Its tiny wheels had spun beneath his fingers. He remembered murmuring, "Woo, woo," as he raced his truck across the floor. "It's okay. Leave it on all night," Othie was saying. "Tomorrow we'll finish, when there's more light." Viv stepped forward with unsteady feet and put the small truck on the altar. She pressed her first 2 fingers to her lips and touched the truck. The boy felt 2 fingers and a kiss press on his forehead. "Mama," he whispered. For a long time, Viv and Othie stood before the altar. The boy stood with them, though he barely noticed when they went upstairs. "Are you ready yet?" asked the woman with the gray hair and the kind voice. "Not yet." The boy stood, or floated, or wavered there all night. The truck sat on the altar. His wispy hands traced the shapes and the feel of the steel. He remembered the smell of it, metallic and deep, and how the smell would stay on his hands for a while after he played with it. He made a tiny sound inside himself, "Woo, woo," and ran his hand along the wooden tiles as if making it drive along the top. At last he curled up beneath the fire truck and drifted off to sleep. He woke up to Othie and Viv clomping and squeaking down the stairs together. They moved slowly, with a kind of rhythm. Viv held a small saucepan in her hand. The gasoline alcohol smell of glue flowed from it. Othie held a tile, which he had written on upstairs. "Are we ready?" he asked Viv. "Yes, I think so." She held the pot close to the altar as Othie dipped the paintbrush in. He spread some glue on the last tile, it was chestnut, and set it in one side of the alcove. "Yes, that's right," Viv said. "It is beautiful, Othie." "Well, I suppose it is." The boy slipped close and peered at the newest tile. In careful and precise curves it said, "From Othniel T. and Vivian J. Henderson, to the glory of God and in memory of our dear son, Benjamin." The boy reached out to the writing, his thoughts swirling like a whirlpool. This was his name, Benjamin. He had died here. Died. What did that mean? He had died of fever in this house just 2 years ago. Now he remembered. Othie, Daddy, sitting, stone-faced, staring at his empty fireplace in summer. He had not moved for a whole week. Viv had brought him food, half stumbling. Her fingers had moved on their own through the biscuit dough and pork chop gravy, her mind a complete blank. She had eaten half a chop, he less. Confused and panicked, Benjamin had fled from the kind gray angel who had come for him. He saw Mommy and Daddy torn apart by how sad they were. He could not bear to leave them, so he had half stayed in the space beneath the stairs where it was cool, where the howling flame of grief had not burned. But now, Daddy had put the one final square in the altar. Mommy sighed and pressed her hand against her belly, only barely sensing a new life stirring there. They were going to be okay. Benjamin turned and saw the lady with the gray hair waiting. She smiled. "Ready?" He nodded. She stretched out her hand. He took it, and together they flew up the stairs and through the kitchen, out into the bright sky and the blazing glory of light beyond.